Hello and welcome to the GYDA Talks, the Grow Your Digital Agency Talks. And today, delighted to have who we could describe as a legend in his own lifetime, Dixon Jones. Hello, Dixon.
Hello, you could describe me as a legend in your own lifetime, but I think that would be really rather pushing it, Robert. But thank you for the compliment.
No, I think we can. I think we can call you a legend, and people know who you are. They know. If they don't know, I mean, for those few people who don't know who Dixon is, would you like to just give us a bit of a background?
Sure. So I started in SEO in 1999. I set up I founded an agency in 1999 called Receptional, which I no longer am involved in. But I'm really started getting known when I became marketing director of a little startup called Majestic.com, which has one of the largest indexes of the internet, frankly, and really is primarily a backlink analysis tool, and also now has a social media influencer tool as well. I pulled back from there mostly a few years ago, but my wife wanted me to buy a nice big posh house on the edge of the village, which we haven't yet got. So I had to start another business. I went into bed with a French guy called Fred Laurent, who has really worked hard on the semantic web and has. And inlinks.net is a tool that we've now got out, which really is a SEO technology from which is built from the ground up around semantic SEO or entity SEO, and so I'm working on that as CEO of that, and hopefully we'll have as much success with that as I've had with anything. Let's hope.
Well, so entity SEO. So I mean, I guess the question is. Is this the universal antidote to all problems SEO? I mean, let's just get some sense of where entity SEO fits into the hierarchy.
Okay. Well, I think it's the thing is, firstly, people get scared with when they hear a new kind of phrase and assume that it's just another SEO spin on an idea, and people can't and SEOs are trying to obfuscate, for want of a better word, and try and put snake oil out there, and I think that's not true. We can either answer that question by going from the research down, and things like BERT and the way in which Google has changed its way of indexing and understanding and its information retrieval, or we can go from the way Google are talking about the concept of things not strings, which is the idea really of saying that an entity is a topic. So rather than indexing the world's information around web pages, it's easier in the back end for them to start indexing the world around concepts and ideas. So for want of a better word, call that a Wikipedia entry or an encyclopedia entry, basically. So a company becomes big enough to be called an entity in its own right, but also a concept is an entity. So you could have a concept of a book, or the concept of reading, so there's different ideas that are all entities, and so you can there's a lot less entities in the world than there are web pages in the world. So there's so many web pages in the world that if you want to try and get the answer to the question, how many geese typically fly in a flock, then there's a million different, there's so many different web pages that are out there. But if you've got the concept of geese and then you've got everything about geese, then the information's in the geese category or entity. So that's the kind of idea that I try and put out there. That's where I try and explain it, and I think people can get it that way. If you think about the knowledge graph, or Google is trying to build a graph of ideas and concepts, and a concept is just something that you would see in an old style Wikipedia encyclopedia, then basically you're in a pretty good place to try and understand entities, and therefore, once you've started understanding that that's the way we're going, that changed the way that you look at SEO, or should do, because the old way of SEO was very different.
And is your thinking that if SEO specialist SEO agencies use your product, they will be able to deliver better SEO to their clients? Or are you thinking that clients should be talking about entity SEO?
I think, firstly, you don't have to use our product to think in terms of entity SEO. You could work in spreadsheets. You could sit there and say, right, I want to talk about, I want to be number one for geese. I've got a geese on my screensaver over there, so hence the geese analogy. I wasn't pre-planned. So you can sit there and say, right, okay, I want to be the number one site for geese, or Canadian geese they are actually. So therefore, what do I need to know about? What do I need to write about and think about those topics? And you can then have a look at what the best of breed are writing about and make sure you cover that information. Have a look at what what's already made Wikipedia. Open your old encyclopedia on geese and find some novel stuff that isn't on the internet as well. And you can start working that way, rather than saying Canadian geese, Canadian geese, Canadian geese, Canadian geese, and just repeating those words. So you don't need a tool like Inlinks. However, Inlinks is able to very quickly extract all of those entities out of a corpus of data, whether it's your own site or whether it's any other set of web pages. It can pull that together very, very quickly. And that's really where it starts to be quite useful, because all of a sudden you've got this content brief in front of you that says, you want to talk about Canadian geese? Well, you better talk about wings, and you better talk about migration, and you better talk about Canada and Northern Hemisphere, and all these kind of things. So it just does a lot of that lifting for you, and then it does some other fancy things like linking all the mentions of Canadian geese. If you've got a whole website about birds, then you've probably mentioned Canadian geese, in 4 or 5 different places. Well, Google doesn't know which one to put forward there. So then you can link everything together and say, right, this is a page about Canadian geese. It can write underlying schema and inject it into your web page that says, Mr. Search Engine, in case there's more than one, this page is about the concept of Canadian geese. It also mentions the concept of migration and the concept of the Northern Hemisphere and stuff, but these are secondary to the concept of geese. And then all the other pages, then when they're talking about Canadian geese, link through to the Canadian geese page, so that if you're a user, you're going through the website and you're seeing that you're talking about, what kind of bird is this? And you've got a picture and it connects to the Canadian geese, and the link goes straight to the Canadian geese page. So it's good for the user, and it's making it easier for a search engine that is thinking in terms of entities and things to know what page is about what.
So if we were, as we have been known to, were falling out of a bar at Brighton SEO or whatever it is at 12 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock, do you remember those days?
Yes, or something on a roof garden somewhere in South London. Yeah.
That I'll just have one more before I go conversation. I would say to you, start up in the middle of possibly the worst recession. Is that really a clever thing to do? What's the upside of it? What's the downside?
So I've set up and run more than 4, but let's say 4 material businesses that have taken up all of my life and my times and stuff over the years. The first one was a murder mystery company straight after Maggie Thatcher's rise to power, and there were 3 million people unemployed or something like that. It was supposedly a bad time to set up a business. So that was a great time to set up a business. Reception was 1999. I set that up. So the world was doing okay then. But Majestic was started pretty much right at the banking crisis. So that was pretty much a bad time as well. So, I think that recessions are the best time to set up a business for 2 reasons. One, it's usually for most people, unfortunately, that's done out of circumstance. So you find yourself in a place where you've got to get up off your backside and use your talent, put your talents to work. I don't think that's a great reason to set up a business. I think you've got to want to do it, but I do think it's a great time to set up bootstrapped businesses, ones that are able to just think about the bottom line from the start. And in the good times, there seems to be, here's 50 million quid, or here's £1 million, or here's a lot of money. And for a person that's never run a business before, that's so tempting to go and buy the bigger computer or the company car or the whatever, and unless you follow a business plan and a process, you're going to basically run out of money and fall over a cliff. But in a recession, you're sitting there and thinking about it. People are less willing to give you money, probably. Although it's weird in this one, people seem to have money. In fact, they just seem to be making it all around the world. Oh, we haven't got any money. Let's just quantitative easing, no problem. I don't, I'm trying to read The Economist to work that one out. Anyway, I think it's a great time to set up a business. I think it's the best time to set up a business.
It's the magic money tree that they couldn't find earlier on.
Yeah, well, it's incredible, really, isn't it? And you'd expect, everything I was taught meant that inflation now should go through the roof, but that doesn't seem to be happening. So so people's belief in the concept of money is quite ingrained, isn't it? We'll just double the amount of money in there, and everyone go, okay, fine.
It is. I mean, it is really bizarre that the whole way people. Anyhow, just going back to business. So startup, recession, bootstrapped. It doesn't sound like anyone's given you £10 million just for startup costs. No, and I mean the only one that I was able to put money into this business, so that was great. But the only one that had startup money was Majestic. But looking back on it, it wasn't a huge amount of money, the great thing about a digital world is you don't need a lot of money, do you? You do need a lot of brains. I think the much harder resource is a developer that knows what they're doing and wants to stick with you. That for me is the hardest thing. And even if you're agency side, when I was running an agency, it was getting those people that okay, they didn't have to program, but they did have to love SEO, because after a while, it's a if you don't get it, you just it doesn't tickle your boat. Tickle your boat, is that a cliche? A clash of cliches. I think you're on mute there, Robert. There we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's a two-way conversation. He's a very professional presenter, actually. Anyway, sorry. What were you saying? Clashes, the cliche clashes. So how do you get? I mean, so we're in this kind of level playing field. We're in a world where you're.
It's not that level. I think that there's education is not yet leveled up, and if we can level up education, then I think it will be a fairly level playing field. But right now, the people that can set up a WordPress site are already, a massive way farther forward than somebody that is a fantastic carpenter and crafts person, but just can't do that bit of opening up the potential of an international market. I think there's also the disadvantage of location as well. If you've got products and things and you happen to be able to deliver them to a rich neighborhood, then you're in a much better place than if you're stuck in downtown third world city,
somewhere that someone might be listening from.
Yeah, I'll just insult everyone in the world at this particular point. But I mean, it's not a level playing field. But the barrier to entry has gone down. Basically, you don't need millions to run a successful business. You do need a little bit of money to get off the ground, but but that little bit of money is a lot of money for somebody who is only earning $1 or $2 a day.
So what's your route to gaining traction? Because clearly you need more than 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 users. So how do you? I mean, we've all seen this stuff on Facebook. Follow my 9-step process and have a seven-figure business within 10 days, or your money back. I mean, in all seriousness, how do you get traction for another SEO idea, as it may well be perceived by the market?
Well, My approach is, I mean, I'm a technology business, so it's slightly different to an agency business, although, I've got experience of both. But the advantage of a technology business is that I can use the freemium model idea and have it. And actually, I started to properly understand the freemium model idea from a presentation many years ago by somebody from the gaming, from the free to play games, multi-user game systems, where they found that most people just use the free system, but then you could buy a sword or whatever, and you start paying for things that way and stuff. And he showed me some incredible graphs. It didn't look good because it looked like there was a real problem with a very few people spending huge amounts of money on fancy swords and stuff like that, and it was clearly turning into their profits were coming from an addicted minority.
Can we just stay with that for a moment, because that's the
sure.
same. That's the same as Perry Marshall's espresso machine. Why does Starbucks have a $3,000 espresso machine when everyone's paying $3 for a coffee? And the answer to that is because 1 in 100 people will want a $3,000 coffee machine, but the other 99 are just going to want the $3 coffee, and you're totally missing out on servicing that minority who will be the most profitable people. So there's not. So Marshall's thing is within the 80-20 there's an 80-20, and within the 80-20 there's an 80-20. So
right. Okay. Well, my maths is slightly different to 80-20, but it's the same thing. So I have a free product, which 19 out of 20 people will be on the. So only 1 in 20 that go onto the free product will turn into a paid product. Of those, probably only 1 in 10, 1 in 20 will then grow within that product. And so I've got I think it's a very sensible model, because the other approach in the technology world is it's an enterprise level tool. It's only good for the eBays of this world. And it's going to cost you thousands of pounds every month. Well, that's fine, but the clever people aren't necessarily at eBay. The clever people are the small people, or certainly in the SEO world, the SEO people have very little influence if they're an in-house SEO within the larger organizations. So you don't want to start. You want to sprat to catch a mackerel, whether it's espresso machines and coffee, or whether it's a freemium product that goes into a paid product. I think, or whether if you're in an agency, you're selling a template for a report or whatever, so to show your ability and your knowledge within the industry, and then hopefully people say, well, I don't want to fill this in, and then off they go. So I think that this process works well, but the leverage that we've put in here, the thing that I learned from previous things is that if you can have it so it expands on 2 dimensions, it's a much better system. So yes, I've got a free to paid approach, but then when they're in a paid approach, it's also gradual. So we've got it based around how many pages you're using and analyzing the things. So it's very tempting. Well, hopefully it will be eventually. I've got to make it attractive enough for people to go up that thing and say, right, okay, I've done 20 pages for free. Now I'll have my 100 pages. Oh yes, I can get some more rankings, and I can get some more traffic, and I can do a lot more. You know what? Why don't we take it up to 1,000? Well, in fact, we've got 1 million pages. Why don't we put 1 million pages on the site? And there's going to be a point probably where the cost of it becomes incrementally not worth it for the customer. But that's going to be different for different customers in different places and stuff. So the game in 2021 will be taking the customer user base that I've got, not charging them any more, but showing them how they can measure whether going up my tree will give them more money, because that's the idea of a win-win. So my methodology is, 1, get them into a free account to forever, a free forever account. 2, get them into trying the paid one. 3, get them to grow within this thing and become not customers but ambassadors.
So if it's roughly 1 in 20 creates 1 in 20 creates 1 in 20, you can kind of one can do the maths going in that direction, and let's just say that seems to be fairly proven, fairly established by your experience to date. Does that mean that the business can grow according to the number of people you can stuff into the top of the funnel? Because again, if you look at Terry Marshall for a minute, his argument would be it could be, you can look at traffic, or you can look at conversion, or you can look at economics. And if you double the traffic, or you double the conversion rate, or you double the economics, you end up in the same place. So you've got a choice as to where you put your effort.
So I that dynamic, that maths is very easy to spot. You know, once I've got somebody in as a free user, then my maths is pretty easy to see. But it does change. I have found it has changed. I was spending a lot of time at the start trying to get people into the free top of the funnel, but getting somebody into the free bit, it doesn't really help if they're not going to use it or try it or engage it. You know, so more recently, I've been spending a lot less effort in trying to get people into the free tool, and a lot more effort in trying to get people on a demo, and they can have their first month for free. But they only get the first month for free if they come on the demo. And so that then is a function of how many people I ask to come on a demo, really, and with a genuine request, really. If I reach out and I spend an hour a day on LinkedIn, then I will probably get, 3 or 4 people. My target is 4 demos a day. If I get 4 demos a day, I'm now converting probably half my demos into paying customers. So that's the one that really changed it for me. I was making a mess of it until, in fact, it was you. I blame you for this. You basically said, if you don't get up and sell, I don't think you specifically aimed it at me, but if you don't get off your backside and start selling then it ain't going to work. And really annoyingly, after all my willpower of saying, inbound marketing is all well and good and stuff like that, you have to engage with people on a real, meaningful basis for them to say, oh, now I see you.
I'm just picking around that just because it's just really fascinating as to where business comes from, and whether you pre-qualify it, and there are arguments about making it easy and making it difficult for people to get hold of you, and I think it's still, for me, it's still very much a marketing 101 thing. It's not, people make it desperately complicated. It's like, if you've got something that is a delight to use and people want to use it, it is clearly much easier than trying to sell something difficult.
The downside of that is you still have to remember that you've got to scale this thing at some point. Yeah. So the way that we've done it at the moment is basically there's a URL to go and set up a one-to-one demo, but it has, in the future, it doesn't have to be me. Basically, I'm using a URL shortener so I can change where I send that person. We've just yesterday taken on. We've just started doing demos in French. I'm not very good at that, but I can send people to the same URL, and then they can say, do they want it in English and French? Oh, oui, je parle un petit peu, mais. So I think you have to keep an eye on how you're going to scale that at some point. But I've got. No, it's going to be difficult for somebody to tap into my LinkedIn contacts and generate demos. So I should probably get through all of my contacts first before I start employing somebody else and expecting them to do the.
So you're an agency poacher turned gamekeeper, or gamekeeper turned poacher. I'm not sure which way around it is. So you've done the agency thing.
Yeah, and exited that. Yeah.
Now your clients, in many ways, are now agencies. I was just wondering, for the agency folk listening, what is it you need to grow an agency? Because everyone's there. Oh, we're getting up really early in the morning. Oh, we've got a website. Everyone's pulling string. Oh, we're award winning.
I think knowing where you want to go is pretty much a good place to start. And I said this before, but I think that probably every agency, in fact, probably every business says, "Oh, yeah, no." When they start up, most say, "Yeah, I want to do this for 5 years and sell it," with no thought about what that means. I think you shouldn't put a time on it. I think you should put a value on it. Say, right, I want to build this business to a value of this, and then get out. If an exit is what you want, you should have an eye on what your goal is in financial terms or in realizable terms. And maybe I want to build this until every person on the planet has had a COVID vaccine. Maybe that's your objective in your mission. It could be all sorts of things, but it shouldn't be, I want to do this for 5 years, because in 5 years we might actually be bankrupt. You might have made your first dollar, and so you're still not worth anything. You may have overshot everything and overreached and start to break things down. And the reason you should do it that way is because you start to build your processes ready for your own exit route. And I didn't do this with my first business, and I found myself getting to around about 20 people, and I was unable to cope. My systems were unable to cope. And my own systems were breaking down as well. Really, I do think that running a business is incredibly stressful, but it can be a lot less stressful if you understand the difference between what you can influence and what you can't influence. And it does help if you've got a little bit of money in the bank, so you know you're not going to go hungry if it all goes belly up.
And I think that's that window. There's something really interesting there. So there's two people who work with me, both of whom joined agencies, one at I think 25 staff and one at 30, and both those people took those agencies to 150. It is, it is one skill doing the startup thing. Hey, we're making sales. Yeah. It's another thing taking the startup and making it into a business. Hey, we're employing people. We're now employing 15 people. And then it's like another thing being a business person and arriving and saying what this business needs is yada, 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 and then making, and it's kind of like the decisions you make as a professional manager are entirely different from the decisions you make as a techie who's suddenly employing 10 people. And they're also entirely different from the decisions you make if you're a shareholder or an investor in a business, the way you view. And I think what often happens is, because so many businesses start on the kitchen table, dining room table, garage, industrial unit, that MBA mindset, let's not be pejorative about it, but that business mindset is very, very different from freelance, independent business mind.
It is, and the research to back it all up is overwhelming, as you and I have talked on many occasions. And I know that my skill set, is a desire to have, a reasonable feeling of freedom and autonomy. Autonomy is probably it's an important driver for me, and I think it's an important driver for most founders. I mean, there are exceptions. There's Bezos and Facebook.
So they're the exceptions.
Zuckerberg's, but for most founders, it's a case of wanting a certain amount of autonomy, or probably AMP. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose, basically. It's probably the same for any human being. But for me, autonomy is the ability to control my own decisions and run a business where I can't be fired, or hopefully not fired from the whole thing, unless I do something really bad. Mastery, try and be good at something, try and be good at it, and purpose is why I'm not doing freemium models within the gaming industry, is try and build something that is going to help other people in society. And I'm maybe SEO is not quite as good as building COVID vaccines, but it's it's a lot better for me than a lot of other things I could get involved in. So
what do you think separates the successes from the failures? Because a conversation we've had before is the successes. So yeah, why were you successful? Oh, we had the right strategy, we had the right market, we had the right teams, we had the right financials, we were in the right time. And then you go to the graveyard of ambition where businesses have gone bust, and you say, tell us about what your business, and they say, we had the right strategy, we had the right marketing, we had the right teams, we had the right finance, we're in the right time, right place. And you go, but them over there are now in a high-rise office employing 500 people, and you went pop. So
no,
history is written by the winners, and I think we have to be really careful not to be suckered into, we've all got these books, and these books kind of justify why they were successful, but they don't actually explain why people are successful. If they don't know what I mean. It's like looking at the clouds and saying, oh, that shape looks like this.
I think fortune favors those who turn up. So my very first business was writing and running murder mystery evenings. So the internet wasn't invented at the time. It was 1989, and I'd come out of university with a third-class degree, and I've been president of Students' Union for a year because I didn't think I'd get a job. It was easier to become student union president than it was to go and get a job that particular year. And then I set up my own business. And I remember those early days were really hard because I set that up with an $800 loan from to add to my student overdraft, so that really was a tight business. But I felt over the years of running that where I got up, it was a very seasonal business. So murder mysteries tended to be heavily sort of Christmas-based Christmas parties and stuff. And I felt that the guy that got up earliest in January and got on the phone and started, getting the business again was the one that was going to succeed. And so I was getting really busy up until December, and then maybe apart from New Year's Eve, come 3rd of January, money in the bank, can relax and stuff like that. And no, it's the one that then gets up and does it. There's so many great ideas that are still on the back of cigarette packets. It's napkins and left in the pub. Getting up and doing it is probably the number one thing that makes people fail. They think that they're doing it. It's the same as exercise. They'll do it for 3 days and then they'll realize that actually they only saw the result. They didn't realize that you actually had to work to get to those abs.
Yeah. So just going back to agencies, a lot of people watching, listening are from agencies. We're in this really, leave aside the COVID weirdness. We're in a really weird situation where 5 years ago Google were the only gig in town. Now there's 7 platforms you can go to. 5 years ago, people, mobile phones were still taking off, video was still kind of taking off. Now they are ubiquitous. That's the word people like to use. As you've pointed out earlier on, the barriers to entry are incredibly low. If you're running an agency, you're competing with kids in Bangalore at $5 an hour. You're competing with iProspect. Everything is moving so quickly and it's so confusing. So I mean, is it even fair to ask an agency to imagine what it would look like in 12 months time? I mean, what my question to you is, how do you become, what does a fit agency look like in 12 months time? Does it specialize in pure SEO or pure PPC or pure content? Or
I don't think there's a model that's always perfect. I mean, there are specialists that have brilliant businesses, and then there are generalists that have different brilliant businesses. I guess at scale, probably people are becoming more and more generalists at scale, just because they don't want to miss out on this extra money that sort of can come off of the same customer base. But I think agility has to be built into your system. Marketers can learn a lot from agile working methods of developers, and really the marketers' systems should follow on for the same kind of agility that the product has. So because even if you're an agency, you're going to have a system. You're going to have an audit kind of system. If you're organic, you can have a way of reporting. You can have a style, a set of rules, and that's going to be there. If you're on PPC, you're going to have some technologies that you use, or some specific platforms that you're going about, and again, you're going to report that back to the customer. But you need to make sure that you are agile in developing your processes and coming out with something new every week or every month. So if I was an agency today, and let's say I was doing just, selling Google ads, I would make a point of making sure that next month we're rolling out our Facebook ads offering, and then our TikTok ad offering, and make sure that we're have a process of saying our business is developing, and then we can then adapt as we go along. We don't have to choose 12 months ahead what we're going to be doing, but we do have to build a system that says the cadence of releasing and moving forward has to happen every month, 2 weeks, 3 months, whatever suits your style. But you should all be working towards regular improvements in your own business model. The companies that die are the ones that build a system and expect that system to still be working for them 12 months from now. They're the ones that are going to die. You've got to build that agility into the system.
And that's my worry. I mean, you've just articulated way better than I've been able to do my worry, which is, the agencies didn't know how good they had it pre-COVID. Lots of them felt very sorry for themselves, been very inward focusing over COVID. How are we going to get around this? How are we going to deal with our people? How will our, as opposed to what do our clients need? And now they talk about getting back to business as usual, or a hybrid model of as near to business as usual, as opposed to saying this was an opportunity to redesign, repurpose, understand what it is that the customer really wants, understand how we can present and deliver to give awesome value to a customer, and not, I mean, I'm sweeping generalizations, but I think a lot of people are missing the boat, because not only has the agency world changed, but the world of customers have changed. The marketing director now works from home, and he now watches his daughter on YouTube and TikTok and goes, oh, I never realized how much people use this kind of stuff. He watches his wife. I'm being very sexist here, but he watches his wife cooking, saying, Google, give me the recipe for ratatouille or whatever it is, and so the perception of a marketing director has changed, a perception of and the way that everyone's working. The FD no longer has a chat and a beer and a lunch. The FD just says, send me your 4 KPIs and I'll deal with it. So the ways of working are moving everywhere, and that is a great opportunity. I know it's different, but it's
and also your cost base has gone down, not up, with this. Well, mine has anyway. I mean, on day one of COVID lockdown, I got rid of my office. I had an office at Cranford University. I say an office. I was in a sort of little hubby kind of thing. But it was on a university campus. I thought that was great, because I could occasionally go to the odd talk and try and keep that, as you say, MBA mentality. But ultimately, if I can't go to office, I dumped it. It's fine. I just tidy up this one a bit, and bought my awards and put them there, and put your book on the shelf. So it's in there somewhere. It's quite thin, so it might not even. It's definitely there, and get up and run. So your cost base goes down. Yes, you've got to then start thinking, if you've got employees, okay, we need to make sure that there's some kind of health and safety in their own workplace of work. So if I have more people, one of the first things I did was make sure that my my business partner had a better laptop because his was rubbish, and I was sitting there thinking, he's got all the code base on that, but I think that, you should make sure that your team take a photograph of their working space, so you can just sit there and say, I'm sorry, you need a stool, you need a proper chair. I've got two chairs.
The ironing board's got to go for your laptop.
Absolutely,
you can't sit on the bed anymore. And I'm being facetious, but I mean, if you flip it the other way, if you've got 50 staff and you're spending 50 quid a week on feeding each member of staff with beer and crisps and nice lights and ping pong balls and whatever.
So, you give them £50 of funny money every week. That's can I come and work for you? I'll just
but they don't.
My way
they don't. The point is that they don't. It's just like, oh well, we'll give you 50 quid for a desk and that'll do. And yeah, another. So just winding this up. So it's things, not strings. That's the message.
That's the message for me moving forward. In that, if you're in terms of entity SEO, you've got to start thinking. Well, in terms of SEO, you've got to start thinking in terms of ideas and not in terms of words. So the old school, when I started in SEO in 1999. I was, making sure my keyword was in the title and in the meta tags, and then in the 42 times on the page. Because that's what Web Position Gold told me to do, which was the tool of the time, and a few of my people will remember that. But that hasn't completely gone away yet, but it's going the way of the dodo, because different words mean the same thing, and the same word can mean different things. And so the systems are working on synonyms much more effectively, and they're working on differentiation between a horseshoe in relation to luck and a horseshoe in relation to farms. Two different, completely different contexts.
I have a very clear memory when we hit 1,000 clicks on an article that I'd written about growing businesses, and then when we taped back to the search term people had used to find the article, it was growing cannabis. So
okay.
Point with the article.
Yes, I remember a well-known SEO of the day. He's still in SEO, Dave Naylor, and he managed to find himself number 2 for Viagra, or he maybe found a Matt Cutts article that came number 2 for Viagra. I can't remember which, but anyway, and it was just mentioned in an article, and then it popped up as as not spam around the concept of Viagra. So things can go out of context quite quickly, or used to be able to, and that's not the case anymore, because natural language processing algorithms are much better at understanding the context of the words on the page and how they relate to each other. Towers and bridges are very different until you put the words next to each other.
So final question for you, and then we'll have to disappear.
Okay.
What are your pearls of wisdom, or your one-liners, that go out to agency business owners? What golden nuggets do you think you should?
So I have a personal Trello board which puts a lot of my mantras down in a place, and I follow a philosophy. I say philosophy. I read lots of philosophies, but I have generally understood the difference between an emotional reaction and a rational reaction, and that I'm unable to have a rational reaction to a lot of things, because an emotional reaction comes 5 times faster or 20 times faster than a rational one. It just takes, as soon as you say something to me, there's 2 levels of communication that are going on, and I'm likely to dive into the emotional one first, and so is everybody else. So understanding that, which I recommend a book called The Chimp Paradox by Dr. Stephen Peters, and Mind Management, and he's got a couple of other books, but same concept, same idea. So what I do on my Trello board is I have what I think I should be doing when I'm in a rational frame of mind, and then what's likely to be going wrong if I'm in an emotional frame of mind in two different columns, so I can see what those two beasts inside me are trying to do. But then I have another column which just lists all of the things that I'm happy about in life, that I have done that was success. So my honeymoon, the days of my both, something about both when my kids were born, and and it could be the day I climbed Snowdon, or whatever it may be, different things that are success, big successes, little successes, happy day out, things I want to remember. I think we're prone to remembering the bad things, and we forget all the good things. So just having all those there, and now there's hundreds. And so every now and then I just go onto that and just remind myself of the good things in life. And that changes my attitude. It stops me from putting myself down. I've got a friend of mine, Mel Carson, who always got really angry that I put myself down a lot. I'm always self-deprecating, and I still am. But going back there and seeing what I have done, going to Buckingham Palace, seeing, getting told off by Princess Anne and stuff, these are good things. There are good things to take away in life. And when you go back and look at them, you can just get yourself back into a settled frame of mind. You get yourself back to the helicopter view. The hardest thing for a startup is that the helicopter view and the coalface view are very different mindsets, and flipping between the two can be very, very stressful. But if you can find mechanisms to help you switch between the two, usually when you're in a stressed state, it's because you've got spent too much time in one place, and you probably need to go to the other place.
Brilliant. Dixon, that's awesome. It's interesting because as you know, I'm not a great fan of hippy dippy, touchy feely bollocks, as I call it.
Yeah.
But the gratitude thing, it just keeps appearing both in people who I see who are effective, but also in kind of my approach, and just being appreciative of what's going on. So I think that's really lovely. I really like the idea of the Trello board with rational, emotional.
So simple. It's so simple. And it's just for yourself. I mean, I wouldn't be too embarrassed if somebody else saw it, but they might think, why is he happy that he went to took a day and saw Jethro Tull? Why is that in his book of successes? But that's my world.
Lovely. Thank you, Dixon. Thank you so much for being a really great guest. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Very about the business, and people can check out the links and the website and so on and so forth.
Yeah, go to dixonjones.com and you'll find out the sort of the non-business side of me as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Been great to talk to you. Thank you.